So Bad It's Good may be an overused categorization as far as film is concerned, but every once in a while something comes along that is so mesmerizing, so baffling, and so ridiculously incompetent that it compels you to watch, and rewatch, and dissect, and I guess make video essays. Madam Web is a beautiful disaster, a truly misguided triumph of so bad it's good filmmaking that serves as an object lesson in how to make every wrong decision when making a movie. Everything's terrible here. Scripting, casting, editing, scoring, direction, costume design, none of it works. But it's also one of the most entertaining films of the year. It has a certain frustrated charm to it that shouts above its flaws, and manages to perfectly crystallize the current studio system's craven obsession with milking IP cash cows well beyond the point of reason. This hilariously satisfying immolation of $80 million of big studio money joins the hallowed pantheon of recent disasters like Cats and the Book of Henry that straddled this extraordinarily fine line between ironic and genuine enjoyment, forcing us to ask the question, what makes Madam Web, and films like it, so irresistible? The first thing you notice about Madam Web is that it's not entirely sure it wants to be a movie, or if it wants to be anything at that. It's not so much a narrative as it is a collection, a collage, an assemblage even, of largely disconnected scenes stapled and threaded together to create the illusion of a linear story. Prod at this thing for more than a few seconds and it dissolves into sea foam and blows away in the breeze. It's almost avant-garde in its fundamental disrespect for structure, tone, and character. Is it an action-adventure film? If so, it's not very exciting. Is it a supernatural psychological thriller? Sure, but the central mystery is basically non-existent. How about a wryly comedic meta-narrative about a filmmaker's inability to stop an easily foreseeable oncoming disaster? That's a bit more convincing. It certainly feels comedic with its stilted line delivery, wildly shifting tone, intrusive to the point of self-parody product placement, bickering Marvel Studios aping dialogue, and ludicrously underdeveloped plot twists. Perhaps it's everything at once. Perhaps it's nothing at all. But the cause of the ambulance crash of competing tones and directions lies at the fundamental overcomplication of its story. It's a kitchen sink film that would be better served by a leaner narrative that draws from chase films like The Terminator. In the version of the film we see in theaters, Cassie Webb, played by Dakota Johnson in a performance so distant that she might as well be on one of the lesser moons of Saturn, is dragged kicking and not so much screaming as mumbling through a narrative she wants nothing to do with. And that's a perfectly acceptable setup for a character. We love Sarah Connor in the first Terminator because we see a full arc from terrified normal waitress to self-actualized robot-smashing heroine. Cassie begins this story apathetic to other people beyond the momentary needs of saving lives as a New York City paramedic. When a freak accident activates nascent soothsaying powers, she's placed into the path of 3 teenagers on the run from a murderous, generic dollar store spider guy action figure masquerading as our villain. Instinctually, she helps them all escape, and they flee the city to evade the constantly advancing threat of Times Square unlicensed Spider-Person. As she gets to know the teens and struggles to cope with her new powers, she's forced to realize that her rejection of long-term responsibility and empathy is a way to run away from her own pain of being abandoned as a child. And in that way, she realizes the girls are a lot like her. They all want what she wants, someone to notice them for their inherent value. And for that reason, she's compelled to help them, even though the rest of her life tells her not to. She discovers the limits of her powers, grows as a person, stops running, and confronts the bad guy. In a moment of self-sacrifice, she finally uses the extent of her newfound reality-warping powers to save the girls and defeat the villain, but loses her eyesight and mobility, aligning her closer to the comic book version of Madam Web. What she's lost in sense, she's gained in found family. When it's laid out like this, Madam Web seems like it has a solid, middle-of-the-road action-adventure hero's journey style plot. It makes sense on paper. But in practice, the film flows like a brand new pack of cards that's been poorly shuffled. It's all seemingly random, but there are these interspersed pockets of cohesion that fool you into believing there's some kind of knowable pattern or plan. The film simply does not wish to be, and its characters don't want to be there either, especially Dakota Johnson. She's a soulful, intriguing actress when the role calls for it, but this performance is shouting from the rooftops, "Someone get me out of here!" Is it a choice, or is it weaponized incompetence so she doesn't get asked to do one of these things again? I lean toward the latter, given the press tour for the film's release. There comes a point in a production this disastrous where you either surrender to the waves or stand defiant, daring them to obliterate you, and Johnson's swirling black hole of awkwardness and inverse charisma creates a paradoxical weightless gravity at the center of the film. This, dear viewer, is our main character.
She's gonna be okay. Who?
Your, patient. Her little boy wanted to say thank you.
What am I supposed to do with this?
Just put it in your pocket and then throw it away somewhere else.
Games. My mother actually died in childbirth. Well, but it wasn't that bad. It wasn't like, I mean, obviously it was bad, you know, she died. Believe me or don't, I don't care. I didn't ask to be doing this with you. Seriously, don't do dumb things.
She's not even an anti-hero, she's the antithesis of a hero. She never makes it past the refusal of the call portion of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. When she's not rejecting invitations or ruining baby showers, she's either abandoning the people she's ostensibly protecting or pawning them off on other people. And for someone with the power to see the future, she rarely, if ever, knows what's going on.
What if I don't want to know? I don't know, I just have a weird feeling. But I don't understand what's happening. That man is trying to kill you.
Then how do you?
I don't know. I don't know, man. I told you, I don't know. I don't know. Crazy shit's been happening and I don't know why. Stop asking me. I don't know what he wants. I don't know anything. I don't know how to control them. And they're relying on me and I don't know how else to protect them. I don't understand why she risked my life to come here. But I don't have a neuromuscular disorder.
Dakota Johnson's take on Cassie is the worst wine aunt, the one you're obligated to invite to parties and group functions because she's going through a bit of a rough patch right now. And her partner in crime, the person she's supposed to zing pithy one-liners off of to establish that she's fun and cool, Adam Scott, who is playing, he's playing this universe's Uncle Ben. The filmmakers have shoved two of America's most understated and aloof performers into the lead roles of their supposedly four-quadrant superhero movie, and they're giving exactly the performances you'd expect out of Adam Scott and Dakota Johnson. Scott is doing his best to extract some wry joy out of a pretty thankless role here, but the chemistry between him and Johnson is like trying to stick two north-facing magnets together. Speaking of things that naturally repel, the villain, played by actual great actor and BAFTA nominee Tahar Rahim, is so detached from the film that most of his lines are delivered off-screen or in reverse shots when possible, or through horrifically implemented ADR that ignores the basic rules of syncing dialogue to people's moving mouths.
It's a curse. You have no idea of the torment and torture of dying over and over again.
I agreed to provide security for you because I thought you were close to finding the spider.
Every day that goes by, my appointment with death gets closer.
You still can't beat me with your mind.
I need to know what happened here. Was his performance unusable? Was this the version of his performance they deemed good? Did they totally rewrite his role in post-production and edit the movie around him? Rahim is a real, serious performer, but the material they've given him is perfunctory in a way that feels like cinematic malpractice. He leaves the impression of a villain, and I mean impression in the sense of one of those paintings of two people staring at each other, and in the negative space in the middle there's supposed to be a vase or something. He doesn't have a cool villain name either. He's literally
Ceiling guy.
Ceiling Guy, the spider person that is similar to but distinct from Spider-Man for legal reasons. Oh, Ceiling Guy. Ceiling Guy does whatever Ceiling Guy does. Can he swing from a web? No, he can't. That's not his thing. Look out. He is the Ceiling Guy. Apparently the teens he's chasing are gonna grow up, turn into spider women, and straight up murder him. Why? Not sure. Probably because of spider crimes in the 70s. But his dreams are pretty explicit, and nightly. Perhaps this is the curse the spider-bite powers have given him as a result of said 70s spider crimes. It's never really explained. Our heroes and villains are all blank, motivationless ciphers who are all being moved around a cosmic chessboard by fate. Nobody's past is their own, and everybody's future is wrapped up in pretty definitive visions. There's no agency here. And not to be nitpick a movie on the internet guy, but his vision makes no sense. It's both wrong and right. Is it supposed to funnel into Cassie's transformation in some way? Are his actions vital to activate her true potential, or the other Spider-Woman for that matter? If that's the case, why have her powers get kicked off by a piece of random job-related happenstance? For a film as obsessed with changing your fate, so much of the central conflict is based on coincidence. And Ezekiel Sims's prophesized murderers, the three Spider-Women, they all feature heavily in the movie and have cool powers, right? Nope. They're just three normal teens trying their best. As performances go, they have some juice. Sydney Sweeney in particular seems more confident and comfortable here than she was in the frustratingly mediocre Anyone But You, even if her high schooler shtick is starting to veer into 21 Jump Street territory. Celeste O'Connor and Isabel Merced are both totally fine, too. Nobody should hold this movie against any of them, and hopefully they'll get shots at better roles in the future. You can see the allure of a role like this. Get in on the ground floor of a franchise, show up in some sequels with powers. It makes sense. And in a competent, twisty, fate-obsessed screenplay, these girls would have each been great at one specific if trivial thing, and at the end those overlapping strengths would help Cassie save the day. But that's not their value here. They're cynical placeholders. Their value is in their potential as future superheroes. Their presence doesn't serve the story, it only services brand extension. Eat your broccoli now, and maybe you can have your dessert later if the broccoli makes enough cheddar. Also, surprise, the dessert is spiders. Metaphor got away from me. But if the movie is broccoli, it's broccoli covered with cheese and sprinkles and maple syrup and sriracha mayo and engine grease and live Pomeranians. That metaphor is still spiraling out of control, huh? What I'm trying to say is that this thing is a jumbled technical disaster on almost every level. The filmmakers are making choices, and they're all invariably wrong. The visual style of the film is a magic eye painting of crash zooms, disorientingly hilarious camera angles, awful floaty CGI, and tacky, omnipresent product placement. It's a bag of tricks movie that mistakes stylistic flourish for a coherent, considered visual language, and the result of the constant, ugly, disorienting movement is a flat, Teflon-like visual surface. Nothing sticks. Nothing comes across as iconic or intentional. It's all just on the screen. That lack of cohesion extends to the action sequences as well. This is the bread and butter of superhero films, and there's not a single extended fight or chase that feels impactful or exciting. Some of that is baked into the premise of the film, though. When the audience is shown the worst possible outcome on screen, followed by a much simpler, less exciting version of everything going pretty smoothly, we miss out on the more engaging middle path most movies take. The version of the story that features peril, narrow escapes, escalating stakes, basic movie stuff. But more subtly, and more critically, it has some of the worst moment-to-moment and structural editing I've ever seen in a movie released by a major studio. Most people don't notice editing. That's its magic. When it's good, it's invisible, or only visible to film school dorks like myself. Madame Web features such garish, inexplicable editing that it achieves the near impossible. It makes your average moviegoer say, wait, why is it edited like that? We hop around from scene to baffling scene, often reliving the same events deja vu-like within the same sequence. This could be used effectively as a way to show Cassie's confusion as her powers manifest, and that certainly seems to be the intent. But functionally, it removes context and orientation for the viewer, leaving us to wonder where in time, space, and causality we are. Couple that with the obvious atmosphere of a project that was drastically retooled in post-production, and it results in a film that has ugly, visible seams that teleport us from moment to moment in a lurching, disconcerting manner. The only thing more garish than the editing here is the product placement, which posits a bizarre alternate universe in which only two major corporations exist on planet Earth: Sony and Pepsi. Oh, and Blockbuster, I guess. How much did Pepsi pay for this? How much did Sony convince them their brand partnership was worth? And do they feel like they got their money's worth? Pepsi's products are the anchor of our 2003 reality here. We're transported to a time and place dominated by Code Red Mountain Dew and Pepsi cans, and to top it all off, they're given the big moment of the film. While Cassie may technically save the day, it's the enormous neon Pepsi sign that truly defeats Ezekiel Sims. The only other way we're grounded into the reality of 2003 New York City is through the fine products and services of the Sony Corporation. This is their go-to move. You'll see both heroes and villains enjoying Sony's products and services throughout their films, regardless of whether or not they're period appropriate. Maybe this guy on the subway had a developer model of the PSP, who knows? And the iconic musical moment of the film? Set to Sony-signed singer Britney Spears' timeless classic, Toxic, a radio single that didn't get significant airplay until 2004. I guess it was timeless. In the grand scheme of things, I guess it doesn't matter if it's technically correct. It's a movie, not an IMDb goofs page, but this kind of constant, consistent brand integration feels gross. I understand it's how these things get financed and offset. Brand deals are the reality of almost every major film, but rarely has the integration felt as comically ham-handed as it is in the case of Pepsi, or as tackily self-dealing as it does with Sony. And for all that brand deal money, they couldn't even get the CGI or costumes right. We're talking CW levels of penny pinching here. But then again, maybe it's part of a larger commitment to the 2003 aesthetic in that Daredevil, Catwoman sort of way. That's not even rock bottom for this film though. Enter Las Arañas. This is the funniest superhero costume of all time, hands down. The way they move, their whole vibe, it's so beautifully cursed. They feel secondhand, counterfeit even. They look like the panicked last-minute cosplay a kid comes up with the night before a big presentation at school that their parents inevitably end up helping them half complete, or more damningly, like a discarded Tobias Funke subplot from Arrested Development. But how much can I hold this against the filmmakers? This thing was never in the complete control of artists, creatives, or craftspeople in any way that matters. This was all Sony. You see, Sony wants their own cinematic universe, and they're willing to get it by any means necessary, but all they have is Spider-Man. And Spider-Man is, well, occupied in a different cinematic universe and making them tons of money while Disney babysits him. But they've got all of these other characters, see? Characters that normally would be used as villains or side characters in, say, a Spider-Man movie. But the MCU isn't using them, so fair game, right? With this box of scraps, Sony is trying to stitch together the single most creatively bankrupt cinematic universe of all time. A Spider-Man-less SpiderVerse, where every B-tier villain and also-ran will get bent and twisted out of shape into cool anti-heroes. Sony is flooding the market with impure product, with the likes of Madam Web, and Venom, and Morbius, and the certainly going to be a flop Kraven the Hunter movie. These almost movies bear a surface-level resemblance to the MCU, but they have none of the simple, whiz-bang, black-and-white pleasures that fuel Marvel's, admittedly diminishing, success. Sony understands it doesn't have to be this way. The Spider-Verse animated movies are doing big, colorful numbers for them, but they've convinced themselves that the success of the first Venom movie means that they can turn any Spider-Man villain into a viable franchise. And honestly, I hope they keep trying. There's a vaguely apocalyptic death cult vibe to the current race to the bottom in superhero movies, and the only suitable punishment for everyone involved in this crime is to make a half-dozen Madam Web sequels with increasingly complex storylines and budgets. This will bring the next great generation of filmmaking upon us by sheer necessity. All that being said, I must admit, I kinda love Madam Web. I've always had a penchant for loving bad movies, and I try my best not to love them ironically. In my view, there's no such thing as a guilty pleasure film. If you like it, something's working for you, and that's to be celebrated. Art is weird and subjective. Even a movie as incoherently made as The Room has a through line of interest that keeps you engaged. Is Neil Breen not cinema? You don't always get to pick the art that speaks to you. There's a line, though, one that separates art and commerce. Most of the true so bad they're good films have this unified feeling of doomed, hubristic artistic intention. It's a true state of denial on the part of a filmmaker whose vision exceeds their talent, the inevitable balancing force of auteur theory. These films are enjoyable for their own sheer chutzpah. They're often stunningly compelling in ways that go beyond the generally narrow criteria for a quote-unquote good mainstream film, and they're worth discussing on their own merits. But then there are the big budget disasters. Think Cats or Waterworld. Think Rollerball, Catwoman, or Batman and Robin. There's some hubris on the part of the filmmakers here, sure, but it almost always pales in comparison to the perverse business hubris of the studios that fund, finance, tinker with, gut, and release these films. It's a false assumption that the suits know best, better than the artists at least, and that we, the audience, will gleefully devour whatever they choose to serve us. Film studios are fundamentally reactionary, most businesses are. They misattribute their failures and misinterpret their successes, and when they think that something's going wrong, they tinker. And obviously it's the creative's fault, so we gotta get them out of there. That's how you end up with the theatrical cut of Blade Runner, by the way, where they shoved in voiceover narration provided at gunpoint seemingly by Harrison Ford, sounding like he's a noir detective trying to solve the mystery of who bonked him on the head with a flower pot.
I'd quit because I'd had a belly full of killing. But then I'd rather be a killer than a victim.
Maybe it's only possible to enjoy these kinds of disasters ironically, but there's a singular, gleeful joy to watching the big, dumb machine churn out something so wrong-headed and miscalculated that it lays their entire game bare. There are positive qualities to a dumpster fire, namely light and heat. And that same fire, setting almost $100 million ablaze, is beautiful in its own way. It's an act of artistic protest to love something ruinous and doomed, something that nobody will ever make a dime off of. In the end, Madam Web compels me, both intellectually and emotionally. It makes me laugh, it makes me cringe, it makes me feel something, even if that feeling is often disgust or confusion. But it also makes me feel a beautiful, righteous glee that comes from watching the catastrophic, hilarious failure of commerce's attempt to mimic art. And in the way that Madam Web stitches together the wildest corners of artistic and economic hubris, maybe her web truly does connect us all. Thank you all for watching Too Many Tapes. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell icon to get updates for when I upload new videos. Have you watched Madam Web yet? It's on Netflix. Do you understand? Let me know that I've lost my mind in the comments. If you want to help out a small YouTube channel, consider donating $1 or more a month to my Patreon. For just $2 a month, you get early access to my videos. Every dollar I get through my Patreon goes to fund tapes and films to cover, alongside new equipment to make the show look and sound as good as it possibly can, so thank you for your support. If you donate $50 or more a month like Natto Kitsch, you get a movie recommendation. This month I'm recommending 2024's Madam Web. No, seriously, I just spent like 20 minutes telling you to watch it. I'm serious, Natto, do it. Join us. Join us. For $10 or more a month, you're Ceiling Guy, and you can do whatever it is a ceiling guy does. And for $5 a month, you're Las Arañas, because you've been given the gift of sight, granting you early access to all my videos. Thank you all again for watching, and I'll see you next time on Too Many Tapes.
Okay, let's not mention that to anybody.